Hi everyone, my name is Breck Whiteman. I'm a PhD student here at the O'Neill School. I'll be teaching a section of this class next year, and so they asked in preparation for that I give a short presentation on a topic in this class. Obviously, with everything going remote, this will have to take the form of an online video. The topic we'll be considering in this video is whistleblower protection laws. Now, to introduce the topic, I'd like to start with a little bit of analogy. I know that not everyone keeps up with sports, so sometimes sporting analogies fall a little flat. But I think most of us have been to some kind of sporting event that have officials, referees, that are making sure the game should be played the way it's intended to. Now, in the case of the NFL, a lot of times we've seen these situations where players get really frustrated with the referees for making a call that they don't agree with. And as you can see in this picture, instances where players actually attack the referees for the calls that they've made. Now, the NFL has a specific rule that prohibits any player from pushing, shoving, or striking an official in an unsportsmanlike manner. And the penalty for doing that's pretty steep. You're automatically disqualified from the game. So the question I want to ask is, why would the NFL have a rule that prevents players from making contact with officials? Well, put yourself in the shoes of the official for just a moment. If you were refereeing a game with 6'10", 300-pound men that were pushing and shoving and testosterone flaring, how would you feel about blowing the whistle and calling them out for doing something wrong if you knew that they could come after you? I wouldn't want to blow the whistle. So these rules are there to protect the officials, to make them feel more comfortable to blow the whistle when they see something wrong, and to make sure that the game can be played the way that it was intended to be played. We have a similar thing that happens in our organizations today. In the same way that sports have officials, organizations have whistleblowers. In this context, though, a whistleblower is an employee who brings the wrongdoing of an employer or other employees to the attention of a government or a law enforcement agency. Now, in the same way that the NFL has a specific rule that protects the officials when they blow the whistle, we as a society have created a number of laws that protect whistleblowers. In the private sector, especially ever since big ethics scandals like Enron and WorldCom, we've created a number of laws that protect whistleblowers. Currently, OSHA enforces over 20 different statutes that protect whistleblowers. In the public sector, Congress passed the Whistleblower Protection Act of 1989 that covered federal employees as whistleblowers. And that's been amended over time, but as it stands right now, this law also covers agency employees, contractors, subcontractors, grantees, subgrantees, and personal service contractors. So anyone who works in or for the federal government is going to be covered under that law. Well, what are these things protecting you from? Retaliation takes a little bit different form in organizations than it does in a football game. And in this context, if I were to blow the whistle against a manager, they could fire me, they could demote me, they could deny me promotion or deny me benefits. Those are very overt, in-your-face ways of retaliation. There are also more subtle ways of retaliation, like we see in this Dilbert cartoon here, where the manager doesn't necessarily have to fire the individual, they could just make it so miserable for them that they want to quit. They could also blacklist you, make it impossible for you to try and get another job. All of these things are forms of retaliation, and that's exactly what these laws are trying to prevent from happening. So the next question to consider is, well, what do I need to report? What's considered wrongdoing in this context? The Whistleblower Protection Act identifies 5 specific instances of wrongdoing. The first is pretty obvious, a violation of the law. The second is just gross mismanagement, any action that puts the agency at risk of a significant adverse impact. The third is a gross waste of funds. Fourth, evidence of abuse of authority by someone in position of authority. And fifth, evidence of substantial and specific danger to public health or safety. So if you observe any of these things in your organization, at least under law, we'd expect that you would blow the whistle on these specific instances. But the second question is, how do I know if my disclosure will be protected? What do I have to do to make sure that I'm covered under these laws? Well, again, the Whistleblower Protection Act gives 2 specific things that need to happen for you to be protected under the law. First is that your disclosure has to be based on a reasonable belief. So when push comes to shove, you don't actually have to be correct. You could be proven wrong and that there was no wrongdoing, but you have to be at least operating under the belief that what you're reporting was wrong. The second one is very important. The disclosure has to be made to a person or entity that's authorized to receive it. So in other words, no leaking classified information to WikiLeaks, right? We've seen a number of individuals in the public that have done this before. Chelsea Manning was put in prison for a number of years. Edward Snowden had to flee the country, right? These are individuals who went outside of the proper channels to blow the whistle, and so they were no longer subject to protection under those laws. They were actually subject to legal action. So in order to be protected, you need to go through the proper channels. Finally, is more of a practical question. How do I file a whistleblower complaint? Well, in the federal government, that's pretty easy. The Office of Special Counsel has a secure line to report instances of wrongdoing, and they investigate wrongdoing throughout the federal government. In the private sector, like we said previously, it's most likely the best option to file a complaint with OSHA, and they can enforce and help protect you in that situation. Most organizations have some kind of whistleblower hotline that you can call that's a secure line, and you can remain anonymous from those calls. But at the very least, ask your direct supervisor or HR representative who to talk to. You'll still be protected. It requires doing a little bit of homework to know what you need to do in your organizational context, who the proper channels are, whether or not your anonymity will be maintained in that situation. But if you do your homework and understand who you're supposed to report to in that context, there are a number of laws that are there to protect you as a whistleblower. There's no reason why you should just keep your mouth shut. That is it for this video. Best of luck finishing the semester. I hope you can finish strong. Thanks.